Honda built its name on reliability, bikes that never quit and hold their value forever, but not this time. In 2025, even Honda has models that collapsed so hard they're practically worthless. Dealers can't sell them, owners can't give them away, and if you buy one now, you'll lose thousands before your first oil change. These are the Hondas that destroyed their own reputation, starting with a model that went from bestseller to bargain bin in record time. At number 15, the Honda CBR 250R First Gen. The original Honda CBR 250R, launched around 2011 to 2013, was once a favorite among new riders. It looked sporty, had Honda's name, and promised to be a trouble-free starter bike. But in 2025, its value is tanking, and for good reasons. For many owners, the pain begins with parts scarcity. Honda phased it out years ago, and many dealers no longer stock fairings, exhausts, or even basic electrical components. When you need a replacement, you're often ordering from international suppliers at high cost. Next, the performance and appeal just don't keep up. Its 249 cubic centimeters single-cylinder engine produces around 26 horsepower. Fine for city use, but painfully underpowered compared to modern entry bikes like CB500F, G310R, or even used Yamaha R3/MT-03. Buyers looking at used bikes see better options for similar money, and the CBR 250R lags behind in tech, features, and presence. Another hit: depreciation and resale demand. Many CBR 250Rs now sell for a fraction of what they once cost, sometimes less than what it costs to restore them. Dealers avoid them because they don't move. Finally, the bike's design is aging poorly. No advanced electronics, limited suspension tuning, and styling that now feels dated. The few riders who keep them often treat them as hobby projects rather than daily rides. The Honda CBR 250R's downfall shows that even solid Hondas aren't immune to market forces. Good name doesn't guarantee lasting value. And if you think that's a painful loss, wait until you see the next one. It's a full-sized model once beloved for power, now abandoned for its repair nightmares. At number 14, the Honda VFR 800 Interceptor, the sport touring legend that lost its crown. There was a time when the Honda VFR 800 Interceptor was one of the most respected bikes on the road. Its V4 engine, smooth power band, and sport touring balance made it a dream for riders who wanted performance with comfort. But in 2025, the Interceptor has fallen so far in value that even clean, low-mileage examples are struggling to sell. The biggest issue? Complexity and cost of upkeep. The V4 engine is a masterpiece, but also a mechanic's nightmare. Valve checks take hours and cost hundreds of dollars. Parts like the cam chain tensioner, stator, and regulator rectifier are notorious failure points, and fixing them can cost more than the bike's resale value. Most owners simply give up and sell cheap. Then there's the market shift. Modern riders want lightweight, fuel-efficient, and tech-packed machines. The VFR 800's 530 plus pounds and old-school looks don't appeal anymore. Honda tried to modernize it with the VTEC version, but that system caused jerky throttle transitions and more headaches for riders who just wanted smooth touring. Dealers confirm the struggle. VFRs sit for months, often with price tags dropping below $3,000 for good condition models. Even die-hard Honda fans admit they'd rather buy a newer NC750X or CB650R for daily use. The Interceptor was a legend, but its age, complexity, and maintenance costs have crushed its resale value. The Honda VFR 800 proves that even engineering icons can age into financial burdens. And if the Interceptor's downfall feels tragic, the next bike shows that even a bold experiment in innovation can backfire hard when buyers never asked for it in the first place. At number 13, the Honda DN01, the futuristic flop that no one wanted. When Honda launched the DN01 in 2008, It looked like something out of a sci-fi movie. A sleek, low-slung body, a weird automatic gearbox, and a promise to blend cruiser comfort with sport performance. But 17 years later, it's one of the most devalued Hondas in existence. The DN01 used a 680 cubic centimeter V-twin engine mated to Honda's human-friendly transmission, an early automatic system that was anything but friendly. Riders found it clunky, unpredictable, and awkward during acceleration. It wasn't fast, it wasn't sporty, and it wasn't comfortable on long rides. The result? A bike that fit in nowhere. With a weight of over 600 pounds and a top speed barely cracking 110 miles per hour, it couldn't compete with either cruisers or sport tourers. Add to that the original $15,000 price tag, and you have one of the worst resale ratios in modern Honda history. Today, you can find DN01s collecting dust in showrooms or being listed online for under $4,000, often with barely 5,000 miles on them. Parts are nearly impossible to find, and that complex transmission means even small mechanical issues turn into major bills. Honda never brought it back or updated the system, leaving current owners stranded with a one-generation oddball. The DN01 story is simple: too weird for the market, too complex for its own good. The Honda DN01 proves that futuristic design means nothing when riders just want something that works. But if the DN01's weirdness killed its value, the next Honda shows how even a strong start can collapse when cost-cutting and confusion take over. At number 12, the Honda CTX 700, the commuter that forgot what riders actually want. The Honda CTX 700 was supposed to be the perfect bridge between beginner bike and touring comfort. It shared DNA with the NC 700 series, reliable, efficient, and easy to ride. But in 2025, the CTX 700's resale value has sunk faster than almost any mid-sized Honda ever made. The reason? Confusion about identity. It's part cruiser, part commuter, part touring bike. And somehow, it doesn't fully satisfy any of those roles. The low seat height and forward controls make it feel like a cruiser, but the engine comes from a practical commuter platform. That 670 cubic centimeter parallel twin is reliable, sure, but it's also dull. It redlines at just 6,500 revolutions per minute, giving the bike a lawnmower-like character instead of the excitement most riders expect from a Honda. Then there's the styling problem. The CTX looks awkward, a mix of futuristic plastic and cruiser bulk that never really aged well. Even in its prime, riders didn't know who it was for. Too soft for sport riders, too weird for cruiser fans, and too heavy for new riders. The result? Dealers can't give them away. Used prices have plummeted to around $2,500 to $3,000 in the US, and some are even sitting unsold on Craigslist for months. Owners love the comfort and fuel economy, but when they try to sell, nobody bites. Honda aimed for universal appeal, but ended up with a bike that appeals to no one. The Honda CTX 700 proves that even dependable engines can't save a bike with no real purpose. And if the CTX 700 failed because it was too confused, the next bike on this list shows how even pure efficiency can become a curse when it strips away all the fun. At number 11, the Honda NC 700X, the practical bike that bored everyone to death. When the NC 700X first launched, Honda pitched it as a commuter's dream. It had car-like fuel efficiency, a built-in storage compartment where the gas tank should be, and bulletproof reliability. It sounded perfect. But over a decade later, the same features that made it unique are what make it worthless in resale markets. Its 670 cubic centimeter engine, borrowed from a Honda Fit car, is engineered for fuel economy, not thrill. With only about 51 horsepower and an early redline, the bike feels slow, uninspired, and almost robotic. It's efficient, yes, nearly 70 miles per gallon, but riders don't bond with it. The NC 700X lacks the excitement or emotional connection that makes motorcycles sell secondhand. Even worse, the styling has barely changed since launch. The adventure look works for some, but next to modern ADV bikes with TFT dashes, traction control, and lightweight frames, it feels outdated. Its original selling point, a built-in storage box, is now standard on many scooters and smaller tourers. Used NC700XS are flooding the market, with many going for as little as $2,800, despite Honda's bulletproof reputation. Dealers say they sit for months because riders see them as commuter appliances rather than motorcycles worth upgrading. The NC700X is a lesson in what happens when reliability outpaces excitement. The Honda NC700X proves that even when a bike is nearly flawless mechanically, boredom can destroy its value faster than time ever could. And if that sounds harsh, the next one's worse. A big twin Honda that tried to copy Harley's soul but forgot its own. At number 10, the Honda Shadow Spirit 750, the cruiser that time completely forgot. There was a time when the Honda Shadow lineup ruled the roads. Affordable, reliable, and easy to ride. They were the perfect Harley alternatives. But in 2025, the Shadow Spirit 750 has become one of Honda's most devalued cruisers, and dealers can't move them without slashing prices deep. The Spirit's 745 cubic centimeters V-twin engine is dependable, sure, but also dated. It uses old-school liquid cooling, a 5-speed transmission, and shaft drive. Great for low maintenance, but boring for modern buyers who want more responsiveness and less vibration. Honda kept recycling the same formula for over a decade, and by 2025, riders are simply over it. Styling hasn't helped either. The long, low look with a teardrop tank and chrome everywhere used to be timeless, but now it's considered old-fashioned. Most younger riders want aggressive, minimalist designs, not stretched-out cruisers with outdated ergonomics. The Shadow's low ground clearance and awkward peg placement make it uncomfortable for taller riders too. Then there's the resale collapse. Early 2010s models that once sold for $8,000 to $9,000 now fetch barely $3,000 on the used market, even in mint condition. Dealers in the US and Canada say Shadows sit for months, sometimes traded in for pennies just to clear space for Rebels and Hornets. Honda's newer, more modern offerings. The Shadow 750 is a victim of time. Reliable, yes, but irrelevant in a market that's moved toward lighter, tech-savvy cruisers. The Honda Shadow Spirit 750 proves that even longevity can become a liability when a design refuses to evolve. And if the Shadow shows how Honda's old-school cruisers aged out, the next bike proves that even adventure machines can lose their soul when they chase trends instead of substance. At number 9, the Honda Africa Twin DCT, the adventure icon that priced itself out of relevance. The Africa Twin once stood as a symbol of Honda's engineering greatness. Rugged, capable, and dependable. But the DCT, dual-clutch transmission version, which was supposed to revolutionize adventure touring, is now one of the hardest models for dealers to move in 2025. The issue isn't reliability, it's complexity. The 1,084 cubic centimeter parallel twin engine is rock solid, but the DCT gearbox adds bulk, cost, and headaches. Riders who love off-roading complain that the DCT removes too much control. It's great in theory, seamless shifts, smooth power delivery, but in practice, it feels robotic and unpredictable in technical terrain. Then there's price creep. The latest models push close to $17,000, with used DCT versions still hovering around $10,000 to $12,000. But with mid-sized adventure bikes like the Yamaha Tenere 700, Suzuki V-Strom 800, and Triumph Tiger 850, sport delivering 90% of the performance for far less, the Africa Twin DCT looks like overkill. Even loyalists are bailing. Dealers in the US and Europe say used stock is piling up, with many riders trading them in for simpler, lighter bikes. Some call it the gold wing effect. Incredible engineering that riders just don't want to manage anymore. Maintenance costs also sting. Servicing the DCT system or updating firmware requires specialized Honda tools, making independent shops reluctant to touch them. That hurts resale even more. The Africa Twin DCT isn't a bad bike. It's too advanced for its own market. The Honda Africa Twin DCT proves that sometimes innovation overshoots what riders actually need. And while the Africa Twin stumbled under its own weight, the next bike shows how even Honda's budget commuters can crash in value when they lose their spark and identity. At number 8, the Honda CB300R, the stylish lightweight that lost its audience. When the Honda CB300R launched, it looked like the perfect small bike. Lightweight, great looking, and reliable. A city-friendly machine for new riders. But in 2025, the CB300R's resale value has fallen hard, and dealers across the US and Europe are quietly struggling to move them even at deep discounts. The problem? It's stuck in the middle. The CB300R costs too much for beginners and offers too little for experienced riders. At nearly $5,000 new, it's only a few $100s cheaper than the much faster Kawasaki Z400 or the CF Moto 450 NK, both of which offer more power, better tech, and stronger highway performance. The 286 cubic centimeter single-cylinder engine is smooth and reliable, typical Honda quality. But with just 27 horsepower, it feels underwhelming in 2025. Even styling, once the CB300R's strong point, hasn't aged well. The Neo Sports Cafe design looked bold a few years ago, but newer bikes have sharper, more aggressive lines that make the CB300R feel tame. It's also missing features that have become standard in this price range. No TFT display, no traction control, and basic suspension that feels dated next to its competitors. Used examples flood the market because many new riders outgrow them in less than a year. With supply exceeding demand, prices have collapsed to around $2,500 or less, even for low-mileage units. Dealers say these bikes just don't hold interest. They're too plain, too pricey, and too quickly forgotten. The Honda CB300R proves that even reliability can't save a bike when performance and excitement vanish from the equation. But if the CB300R fades because it's too mild, the next Honda on this list failed for the opposite reason. It was powerful, bold, and completely misunderstood. At number 7, the Honda CB1000R, the naked flagship that nobody's buying. The Honda CB1000R should have been a star. It had power, looks, and pedigree. But in 2025, it's one of the worst performing Hondas in terms of resale, sitting in dealerships while rivals like the MT-10 and Z900 fly off the floor. It's not that the CB1000R is bad, it's that it's boring for the price. The 998 cubic centimeter inline-4 engine delivers around 143 horsepower, but it feels muted and overly refined. There's no wild edge or thrill factor, something buyers in this class expect. When riders spend $13,000 to $15,000, they want attitude. Instead, Honda gave them politeness. The Neo Sports Cafe styling is another issue. It's clean, but lacks identity. Too round to be aggressive, too modern to be classic. Riders who want a naked superbike go for Yamaha, Ducati, or KTM, where design feels bolder and performance rawer. Even die-hard Honda fans admit the CB1000R feels like a bike for people who don't really want a superbike. That's harsh, but the market reflects it. Dealers report slow sales for years, and used models now hover between $6,000 and $8,000. A massive drop for a flagship Honda. Its electronics suite, though solid, feels dated compared to rivals offering cornering ABS, wheelie control, and ride-by-wire finesse. The CB1000R's simplicity would have been a virtue 10 years ago, but now it feels unfinished. The Honda CB1000R proves that refinement without excitement is a recipe for indifference. And if the CB1000R fell because it's too civilized, the next Honda shows how being cheap isn't enough when the bike looks and feels like it was built a decade too late. At number 6, the Honda Rebel 300, the affordable cruiser that couldn't keep up. When Honda first launched the Rebel 300, it became an instant hit with new riders. Its low seat, easy handling, and approachable design made it perfect for beginners who wanted a cruiser feel without Harley-level size or price. But fast forward to 2025, and the Rebel 300's resale value has tanked. Dealers across North America, India, and Europe can't move used units even at steep markdowns. The biggest reason? The market grew up, but the Rebel didn't. Riders today expect small bikes to offer more technology, style, and performance. The 286 cubic centimeter single-cylinder engine, borrowed from the CB300, is fine for commuting, but not much else. It vibrates on highways, struggles with two-up riding, and lacks the torque cruisers are known for. Even worse, Honda's own lineup undercuts it. The Rebel 500, which offers much more usable power and comfort, is only about $1,500 more. That makes the 300 feel pointless, too weak for experienced riders, too overpriced for true beginners. Add to that the explosion of better value options like the Royal Enfield Meteor 350 and CF Moto 450 CLC, and the Rebel 300 suddenly looks like the least appealing small cruiser in its segment. Visually, it hasn't aged well either. The minimalist design once looked trendy, but by 2025, it feels plain next to competitors offering color TFTs, Bluetooth connectivity, and LED-heavy styling. Even the aftermarket community that once loved customizing Rebels has mostly shifted toward the 500 and 1100 models, leaving the 300 out of fashion. Used Rebels that once sold for $4,000 are now hovering around $2,200 and dropping. Dealers admit they're often forced to bundle incentives or add accessories to move stock. The Honda Rebel 300 proves that cheap only works when it also feels modern. And if the Rebel 300 fell short because it was too basic, the next Honda on this list shows how even nostalgia can't save a motorcycle that refuses to evolve. At number 5, the Honda CB1100, the retro beauty that became an expensive reminder of the past. The Honda CB1100 was designed to capture the charm of the 1970s CBS. Big chrome tank, air-cooled inline-4, simple styling. When it first launched, riders loved its craftsmanship and smoothness. But in 2025, dealers are finding it nearly impossible to sell, and used prices have fallen to embarrassing levels. The issue? It's too retro for its own good. The CB1100 looks stunning, but rides like it's stuck in a time capsule. The 1,140 cubic centimeter air-cooled engine feels lazy compared to modern standards, making only about 88 horsepower while weighing over 560 pounds. It's comfortable, sure, but it's more of a collector's piece than a real-world ride. And that's the problem. It doesn't fit any category anymore. It's too heavy and expensive for casual riders, too slow for performance enthusiasts, and too common to attract collectors. Honda stopped producing it for most global markets after 2022, but the used ones left behind just aren't selling. In the US and Japan, even pristine CB1100S are going for $5,000 to $6,000, half their original price, because no one really wants them. Riders are moving toward lighter, tech-filled retro bikes like the Yamaha XS R900 or Kawasaki Z900 RS, which offer classic looks with modern excitement. Even loyalists admit the CB1100 is a bike you love in the garage, not on the road. It's beautiful but slow, smooth but soulless. The Honda CB1100 proves that nostalgia can't compete with innovation forever. And while the CB1100 fades into the background, the next Honda on this list shows how even a sporty name can't save a bike that lost its edge and its audience. At number 4, the Honda CBR650R, the middleweight sport bike that forgot who it was for. The CBR650R used to be Honda's golden child, a sleek, approachable sport bike that delivered real performance without superbike drama. But in 2025, it's one of the biggest value drops in Honda's lineup. Dealers report that used models are piling up, and resale prices have fallen nearly 35% since 2022. So what went wrong? Simple. The market moved, but Honda didn't. The CBR650R still runs on a 649 cubic centimeter inline-4 engine, producing around 94 horsepower. It's smooth, dependable, and even sounds good when revved up. But in a world where mid-range bikes are lighter, faster, and more advanced, the CBR feels old. No cornering ABS, no quickshifter standard, no TFT display, just a basic package wearing a sporty shell. At $9,999 new, it also sits in a strange pricing zone. The Yamaha R7 and Aprilia RS660 both cost around the same, but deliver sharper performance and far better electronics. Meanwhile, the new CF Moto 6 75 SR and Triumph Daytona 660 offer similar thrills for thousands less. That puts the CBR 650R in no man's land. Too pricey for beginners, too mild for enthusiasts. Even the design, once its strongest selling point, now feels stagnant. Riders call it the baby Fireblade because it looks fast, but in practice, it's more like a comfy commuter with fairings. That's not a bad thing, but buyers shopping for sport bikes want adrenaline, not predictability. Dealers across the US and Europe admit that most interest comes from brand loyalists or riders upgrading from older 500s. Everyone else skips straight to the R7 or Z900. The Honda CBR 650R proves that even good balance can be boring when the market craves excitement. And if the CBR lost its spark through hesitation, the next Honda failed by swinging too hard, proving that going bold doesn't always mean going right. At number 3, the Honda NM4 Vultus, the futuristic cruiser that became a resale nightmare. At number 3, we've got a motorcycle that looked like it came straight out of a sci-fi movie. And maybe that's the problem. The Honda NM4 Vultus was one of the strangest motorcycles Honda ever built. And while it turned heads when it launched, it's now one of the brand's most heavily depreciated models in 2025. With its futuristic fairings, wide front end, and low-slung seating, the NM4 was meant to be the Batmobile of bikes. But instead of aging gracefully, it became a punchline. The 745 cubic centimeter parallel twin engine, the same one used in the NC 750, was built for efficiency, not performance. It made just 54 horsepower, and paired with Honda's DCT transmission, it felt more like a scooter trying to be a cruiser. The price didn't help either. When new, the NM4 cost around $11,000, which was steep for something so niche. Riders who wanted power went for sport bikes, and those who wanted comfort bought real cruisers. The NM4 sat awkwardly between both, too odd-looking to attract traditionalists and too tame to win over thrill seekers. In 2025, these bikes are basically unsellable. Used prices have plummeted to under $4,000, and some dealers have even labeled them collector curiosities rather than functional resale units. Parts availability is another issue. Since production ended years ago, replacements for its unique panels and electronics are hard to find. Still, it deserves some credit. It was bold, creative, and comfortable for what it was. But in trying to reinvent the cruiser, Honda built something the market never asked for. The Honda NM4 Vultus proves that even innovation can backfire when the idea is ahead of its time and too weird for everyone else. But if the NM4 was too futuristic for its own good, The next Honda on our list failed by staying stuck in the past, and it's now barely worth the metal it's made of. At number 2, the Honda Shadow Phantom, the old-school cruiser that time left behind. There was a time when the Honda Shadow Phantom was one of the coolest budget cruisers around. Blacked-out styling, low-slung stance, and Honda reliability. It was everything riders wanted in a simple V-twin. But fast forward to 2025, and the Shadow Phantom's value has crashed hard. Dealers across the US and Canada are offering heavy discounts, and used prices have sunk below $4,000 for bikes that once sold new for nearly $8,000. The reason? The world moved on. The Shadow Phantom's 745 cubic centimeters liquid-cooled V-twin hasn't changed in years. It still makes just 44 horsepower, paired with a 5-speed gearbox that feels ancient in today's 6-speed world. It's smooth, dependable, and quiet. But that's also its downfall. Riders in 2025 want personality and performance, not something that feels like it's from the mid-2000s. Then there's the design. The Shadow's all-black look used to scream custom cool, but now it just feels dated next to bikes like the Yamaha Bolt R-Spec or Royal Enfield Super Meteor 650, both cheaper, better equipped, and visually fresher. Even within Honda's lineup, the Rebel 500 completely eclipsed the Shadow in comfort, tech, and modern appeal. Another factor hurting resale is the cruiser market itself. Younger riders aren't buying them, and older riders are shifting toward lighter, more upright bikes for back comfort. As a result, the Shadow sits awkwardly in a shrinking category. Too heavy for new riders, too basic for veterans. On the used market, Shadows linger. Many listings sit unsold for months because buyers would rather pay a little more for something newer and more exciting. Dealers even joke that the only people buying them are classic cruiser collectors, with a soft spot for nostalgia. The Honda Shadow Phantom proves that even bulletproof reliability can't save a bike when everything else around it gets stale. And while the Shadow fades into dealership clearance sections, our final Honda on the list shows how even innovation and hybrid ideas can fail when they forget who they're really for. At number 1, the Honda DN01, the automatic hybrid cruiser that nobody wanted. At number 1, we've got a bike that looked revolutionary on paper and turned into a financial disaster in real life. The Honda DN01 was Honda's bold experiment, a futuristic blend of sport bike, scooter, and cruiser, powered by a 680 cubic centimeter V-twin with an automatic transmission. It launched with big promises, and an even bigger $15,000 price tag. But in 2025, it's remembered as one of Honda's biggest sales flops. Dealers couldn't move them even when they were new, and the used market today treats them like curiosities rather than real motorcycles. You can find clean DN01s for under $3,000, a shocking fall for something that was once meant to redefine riding. The main problem? It tried to please everyone, and ended up pleasing no one. Cruiser riders didn't want an automatic transmission. Scooter riders thought it was too heavy. Sport bike fans thought it was too slow. The DN01 was trapped between worlds, and its radical styling didn't help. Its long, swooping fairings and wide stance looked like something from a sci-fi concept sketch. Unique, yes, but not something most riders wanted to be seen on. Performance was another letdown. Despite its futuristic design, it produced only 61 horsepower and weighed nearly 600 pounds. The automatic transmission, Honda's HFT system, felt clunky and disconnected, especially compared to today's smooth DCT systems. Even Honda quietly admitted defeat after just a short production run. Today, parts are rare, resale is brutal, and most dealers refuse to take them on trade. Owners who still have them often call it the weirdest bike Honda ever made. And they're not wrong. The Honda DN01 proves that innovation only works when riders actually ask for it. And with that, we wrap up our look at the Hondas that went from showroom pride to resale regret. Which one do you think deserves a second chance? Comment below, hit subscribe, and we'll see you in the next breakdown of bikes the market forgot.